on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Hare Krishna. So I once again welcome all of you to the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. So today we will be moving on to our next session, that is Srimad Bhagavatam. Before moving to the next session, let me know who are on the call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण अनिता माता जी दंडवत प्रणाम शिला प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय प्रीतिदास जी फ्रॉम शालो हरे कृष्णा
Hare Krishna Preeti Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji. Okay, go ahead, Mataji. Krishna Kumari Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, your Guru Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raj.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much Mataji for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam Srila Prabhupada ki jai Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shyama Gauri Devdasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shyama Gauri Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all your services on Bhakti Sangha, and thank you so much for everyday Bhagavatam class. Welcome to the call Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you also Mataji. Very nice food offerings also. Every time when you show the picture.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, and all devotees of the Japa Sangha. Thank you for allowing me to join your class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shukakar Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees, and all glories to all your services in Krishna consciousness. Welcome to the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for all your services on Bhakti Sangha. Thank you so much for joining the call. Welcome to the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I offer my obeisances to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Ayan from West Bengal.
Hare Krishna, Ayan Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Is there anyone else who would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji. This is all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees on the call. Please accept my humble obeisances. This is Harita from Houston.
Hare Krishna, Harita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, I once again welcome all of you to the Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Now we will be moving on to our next session, that is Srimad Bhagavatam. Before moving to the next session, I would like to hand over the call to Sureshwar Shyam Prabhuji to give a brief introduction about His Grace Jayananda Gauranga Prabhuji. Sureshwar Shyam Prabhuji, are you there?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Here is a brief
for your time and association, and welcome to the call, Prabhuji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Here is a brief introduction about Prabhuji. His Grace Jayananda Gauranga Prabhuji is a disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj. Prabhuji took to Krishna consciousness while at college. He did his undergraduate at BITS Pilani, doctoral degree at Texas A&M, and postdoctoral work at the University of Wisconsin, Madison. He has been chanting 16 rounds for over 20 years. Prabhuji is well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and has read Chaitanya Charitamrita over 50 times. He has been doing edifications of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam for Bhakti Vrikshas. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Back to you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that brief introduction. Hare Krishna, Jayananda Gauranga Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time and association. So today we will be seeing Canto 6, Chapter 3, and Text 18. The verse number is Text 18. And I once again welcome all the devotees on the call. And over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. I hope you're able to hear me. Okay. Thank you to Vinita Gandharvika Mataji for asking me to speak on this verse, Canto 6, Chapter 3, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayet nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri gurve namaha Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you again for this opportunity. We are going to read from Canto 6, Chapter 3, verse 18. Bhutani Vishnu Surapujithani Durdarsha Lingani Mahadbhutani Rakshanti Tat Bhakti Matha Parebhyo Mattascha Martyanatha Sarvatascha. Bhutani Vishnu Surapujitani Durdarsha Lingani Mahadbhutani Rakshanti Tat Bhakti Mata Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Atha Sarvatascha. Translation. The order carriers of Lord Vishnu, who are worshipped even by the demigods, possess wonderful bodily features exactly like those of Vishnu and are very rarely seen. The Vishnu Dutas protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of the enemies, from envious persons, and even from my jurisdiction, as well as from natural disturbances. So this verse is spoken by Lord Yamaraj to his to the Yamadutas. Purport. Yamaraj has specifically described the qualities of the Vishnu Dutas to convince his own servants not to be envious of them. Yamaraj warned the Yamadutas that the Vishnu Dutas are worshipped with respectful obeisances by the demigods and are always very alert to protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of the enemies, from natural disturbances, and from all dangerous conditions in the material world. Sometimes the members of the Krishna conscious society are afraid of the impending danger of world war and ask what would happen to them if a war should occur. In all kinds of danger, they should be confident of their protection by the Vishnu Dutas or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktya pranashyati. Material danger is not meant for devotees. This is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Padam padam yat vipadam natesham. In this material world, there are dangers at every step, but they are not meant for the devotees who are fully surrendered under the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotees of Lord Vishnu may rest assured of the Lord's protection. As long as they are in the material world, they should fully engage in the devotional service by preaching the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna, namely the Hare Krishna movement of Krishna consciousness. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So this discussion, I have given the order in which we would discuss this. The first part of this discussion would be about why do we need protection? Why does the living entity need protection? We will then move to talk about the root cause of suffering. And then we will do a brief analysis, discuss a brief analysis of Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti's analysis of the root cause of suffering. We will then talk about, as we are seeking protection of the Lord, the concept of tolerating distress and accepting Krishna's will. And then we'll end this discussion with one example from Srimad Bhagavatam of the protection of the Lord, and one example from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, the first point is, why do we need protection? Why does a living entity need protection? The Lord protects everyone, but one who depends completely on the Lord is especially looked after by the Lord. So, as the Lord, He's a protector for everyone. So, however, there is still something called as a special mercy. This concept is actually dealt with in Canto 7 in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Science of God, that the Lord is equal to everyone. So there is a question of, is the Lord partial? And the Canto 7 starts with this concept. And here it's there are some examples. I haven't cited Canto 7 here, but example 1, Uttara. So here Lord Krishna was leaving the Kurukshetra battlefield, everything, the war is over, and then he's leaving back. At that time, Uttara is hurrying towards him in fear. So here, the Lord is especially the protection that the Lord offers towards his devotees who are completely dependent on him. Uttara was completely dependent on the Lord. And this is given, this special protection is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, verse 8. And then this verse which is there, Sudarshanena Swastrena, that the Pandavas were 100% dependent on the protection of the Lord. So, although they were all very great, so this is the Sudarshanena Swastrena, this verse is where the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama is coming towards the Pandavas and the unborn baby. And here the Pandavas were 100%, they were capable of protecting themselves. They knew how to use the Brahmastra. They were all great warriors, but independent of their qualifications, they were 100% dependent on the protection of Krishna. And Krishna protected them. Then the another verse, this is in the 10th canto, the first canto, 10th chapter. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanctions or without Krishna's approval, nothing can happen in this world. So that means, so the secret, so here is the secret that's given. How can one be successful? Is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So the substance of this slide is that even though the Lord protects everyone, he especially looks after those who are completely dependent on him. That means that there may be one kid in the house who is completely dependent on the parent. And the parents, even though they are equal to all their kids, but they take special attention towards the kid who is completely dependent on them. So in the same way, the Lord also takes special attention on those who are completely dependent on them, upon him, on the Lord. So do we just sit passively for the protection of the Lord? The answer is that the living entities should also seek protection from Krishna, because even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was visiting the south, he was saying, Krishna, Rakshama. That means that the protection, living entity should actively seek the protection of the Lord. It's not a passive process where just waiting. It is, we have to seek the protection of the Lord. The Lord is always protecting, but we still have to do our part by seeking the protection of the Lord. This is a verse in first canto. Dhritarashtra was in a very precarious condition. And what was this condition? The war was over. He was still in the living in the protection of the Pandavas. And these are the Pandavas whom he had vilified before. And there Vidura was telling Dhritarashtra, it's time to let go. It's time to let go and move out of here. So one should, and here, when Dhritarashtra is in a precarious condition, Vidura is telling him that one should therefore seek the protection of the Supreme Lord. Because this human life is meant for, that's the purpose of this human life. The human life is meant to seek protection from the Supreme Lord. It's a very nice experience, even to seek the protection from the Supreme Lord. And here Vidura is advising Dhritarashtra, so much has gone and you're still here. You're still here. It's time to let go all this and seek the protection of the Lord. Second example. So this is in Canto 2, Chapter 2, verse 5. According to the regulations of Sanatana Dharma. So here, it's not like one just knows how to seek the protection. One has to be trained to seek the protection. So or in the regulations of Sanatana Dharma, one was always trained from the beginning to depend on the protection of the Lord in all circumstances. So that is the purpose here in ISKCON. The purpose is to train from the beginning to depend on the protection of the Lord, to always depend on him, and Krishna will take care. The third part, this is the last slide of this section, is that it's not that we just need to do it. We need to be seeking the protection of the Lord. But why do we need to seek the protection? Because we require protection. We are in that kind of a situation where we do require protection. Whether one is a conditioned soul or liberated soul, it doesn't matter. One still requires protection. The liberated souls are always protected because they are always, and all circumstances, 100% dependent on the Lord. But the conditioned souls, they actively need to seek protection because they also require protection. There is this verse in the Bhagavatam, Rama Krishna Bhujashraya. So the Jiva Tattvas, they are infinitesimal, so they are marginal energy. They are particles of the marginal energy of the Lord, and they require protection of the Lord at all times. That's what this verse says. Rama Krishna Bhuja. Bhuja is the arms. Ashraya means shelter. So what kind of shelter? The shelter, who's giving? This is Lord Balarama. Rama and Krishna mentioned here is Lord Balarama and Krishna. Lord Balarama and Krishna, you will have to take shelter under them and they will protect. Rama Krishna Bhuja Ashraya. So the Jiva Tattvas, they are infinitesimal, they're small particles of the Lord, and they always require protection of the Lord. So, but what is the status of the conditioned soul? Manda Bhagyaha. Bhagyaha means fortune. Manda Bhagyaha means, Manda means not very slow. That means it's unfortunate. Manda Bhagyaha is as good as Abhagya. So we are unfortunate souls. And why is it? Pratikshante. So we need to wait for this. We need to wait for this nide me matram prajaha. So that means that we need to wait for this protection. Another example, so when a patient dies, in spite of a good physician and a good medicine, thus without so, we may have the best of the medical facilities, we may have the best physician for us, everything is there, but still the patient dies. Why is that? Because it's in an unfortunate position. Thus without the protection of the Lord, one cannot live with or without parents. So sometimes parents feel that they have to take care of their children, which is true, and they've been given a responsibility. But actually the protector is not the parents. Krishna is the protector. Krishna is the protector, whether the parents may think what if, so parents may sometimes feel very concerned, oh, what will happen to the child without me protecting? But the parents do not understand that it is not them who are protecting, it is Krishna who is actually protecting, with or without parents. That's the verse. This is in the 7th canto, 7.2.55. With or without parents, the protection is given by the Lord to the kids. So, why is this protection needed? Because the living entity is always there is a suffering which is constant in this world. And why is there suffering? The Bhagavatam gives the answer to that. So I've done a brief analysis here of why there is suffering. I've given 8 different places in the Srimad Bhagavatam. What does the Bhagavatam say why we are suffering? The first reason is a little outside the realm of all the other reasons, but this is where the Srimad Bhagavatam starts with. This is 1st canto, chapter 5, verse 9. This is the conversation of Vyasadeva with Narada Muni, where Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva why is there suffering. But this is a little different, okay, compared to 2 through 8. First verse is a little different. First cause of suffering, because this is a little more spiritual in nature. So this is deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord. Vyasadeva has written so many scriptures. He wrote the Mahabharata. So many mundane subjects have been discussed. And what is the context of this verse? Is the despondency of Vyasadeva. So Narada Muni says that the deliberate avoidance of the glorifying the Lord is the cause of his suffering. But the other 2 through 8 reasons, which I picked up from Srimad Bhagavatam as the cause of suffering, as the root cause of suffering of a living entity, will go for all conditioned souls. So this is Canto 1, chapter 9, verse 22. This is Bhishma Dev, before his disappearance. He makes statements to the Pandavas, to the Yudhishthir Maharaj, and there he ascribes why there is suffering to this concept called false ego. False ego means that we are identifying ourselves with the body, with this body that is born, and not with our true self, the soul. So this false ego, the same reason false ego is identified as our cause of suffering by Lord Kapila to his mother, Devahuti. And there in Canto 3, chapter 27, verse 9, again, Lord Kapila is stating that false ego. So both Bhishma Deva and Lord Kapila are ascribing the root cause of suffering to be false ego. Third, and here, after the disappearance of Krishna, Arjuna is very, very despondent. He is not in a good shape, and he speaks to Maharaj Yudhishthir. At that time, he says that the root cause of suffering of the living entity in this world is we lording over the material nature. That everybody trying to be controllers when we are not. So, and this lording over the material nature, this is Canto 1, chapter 15, verse 25, is ascribed as the root cause of suffering by Arjuna. And then the second canto, King Parikshit is inquiring of how all dirty things come in a person's mind can be removed. So this is very similar to what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first said, Cheto Darpanam Arjunam. So the impurities accumulated in the heart, so many lifetimes have passed, and there is so many impurities and garbage that is accumulated over the heart, and that is considered as the root cause of suffering. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in fact, even starts with this, the Shikshashram, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhavamaha Davagi Nirvarpanam. That means that so much dirt has accumulated over the heart that we have to take the broomstick and clean this, the dirt that is accumulated. And what is the method? Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Chanting the holy names of Krishna is that broomstick that will clean this heart. So that is the fourth thing that I've cited here is impurities accumulated over the heart. That is cited by King Parikshit. As he's inquiring, Parikshit Maharaj is also talking about impurity. That is the status of the person who's even inquiring, the knowledge that the person has. And then in Canto 3, this is the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. But Vidura is inquiring here, but at the same time, he's also making a statement. And this is, he says, the unlawful desire to become one with the Lord in every respect. So even though we are spirit souls in quality, the Lord is spirit, the Lord has a spiritual form, we have a spiritual form. So, but however, becoming one with the Lord in every respect, that unlawful desire is the cause of suffering. This is a statement made by Vidura. And then in the 5th canto, Lord Rishabhadeva, he, before describing his activities, there the root cause of suffering is provided. And that is that the mind is a root cause. Sukadeva Goswami is saying this, the mind is a root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. So pretty much he has listed all the causes, what all would be leading to suffering. Okay, that is lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear. All these things, what is the cause of that? So the identification here made is mind. The mind is what is resulting in all these things. And this is described just before Rishabhadeva's activities are being described in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Prahalad Maharaj in the 7th canto is offering prayers to Lord Narasimhadev. And this is 7.10.3. And there he says that what is the cause? Samsara bijeshu. Okay, the seed. What is the bijeshu? The seed of all suffering. Samsara is the conditioned life. Bijeshu is the seed of all suffering. Life is kameshu. The lusty desires within the core of one's heart. That is the root cause of suffering. And a similar thing is also made in Canto 9, Chapter 8, verse 26. I think it's associated with Ambarish Maharaj. So this is also says that lusty desires within the core of one's heart is a root cause of suffering. And then the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, so this is the chapter on the killing of the demon Trinavrata. There is King Parikshit actually says to Sukadeva Goswami, what is the root cause of suffering? That one's attachment to hearing about all mundane things. So we are so much interested about hearing about what is going on in our city, in our school, in our university, in our college, in our workplace, in our company, in our family, in all kinds, in political situations in the world, what is happening in different places. All this hearing about mundane material things is the attachment to that is the cause of suffering. So the Bhagavatam analyzes why we are suffering in different places depending on the context. The Bhagavatam has provided different answers. So at this stage, I want to showcase what does Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur say about this. It is not actually an analysis of Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur. It is actually an analysis that happens in the Uddhava Gita of the Avanti Brahmana. And this is in a famous way called as the Bhikshu Gita, okay, the Gita of the mendicant. So here, this Avanti Brahmana is actually doing the analysis, but Vishwanatha Chakravarti is giving very detailed analysis of the conversation here, of what is it that is being said here. So why are we suffering in this world? So he's taking here, the Brahmana here, is taking different causes one by one and providing a reasoning and saying whether it can be accepted or whether that argument is rejected. The first cause which is taken is, other people are the cause of my unhappiness. So many things happen like this. So many living entities, they come, they say harsh words, They say things that we don't want to hear. They willfully cause us problem, unwillingly cause us problem as well. And here, but the reasoning given here is, there is no other people, they are affecting our body. So one material body is affecting another material body. So there is no soul in this conception. So the other living entity, their material body is causing distress to our material body, but the soul stays unaffected. And therefore, when we say that other people are causing my unhappiness, they cannot really cause our unhappiness because they're just, after all, doing it to our material body, which is not us after all. So in this concept, there is no soul in this conception, and this argument is rejected. That means other living entities. So we can never go and say, okay, all these people, they have caused us suffering. Some of my family members have caused suffering. My friend has caused suffering. My colleagues have caused suffering. This argument has been rejected. Second cause of suffering, that the devas cause my suffering. The different, the demigods, they are the controllers of our senses. Different devas, they control different senses. Therefore, they are the cause of our suffering. Again, if you see here, they are only interacting with the senses. And the senses are distinct from the spirit soul. And hence, again, it is unrelated to the soul. So the devas are not controlling our soul. They are controlling our senses. And therefore, again, this argument is rejected. That means that the devas, like even if you take the natural calamities, okay, Adi Devik, they are all affecting the material body. Nothing is affecting our soul. So again, this argument is rejected. The cause 3, which is our cause of suffering, again here is that we ourselves are the cause of our unhappiness. It's self-inflicted. The individual soul itself is causing. So people will say, okay, so nobody needs to cause our suffering. You are your own cause of suffering. But the soul is by nature happy. Sat, Chit, Ananda. So here, Ananda, the soul is these are the characteristics of the spirit soul. Just like how like Jada, the matter has its characteristic, like a teapot has its characteristic, a table has its characteristic. What is the characteristic of the individual soul? Sat, Chit, Ananda. Okay, there is consciousness, it is eternal, and there is bliss. Soul is by nature very happy, and so unhappiness can never be ascribed to the soul. So that means in this concept, the soul is, if the soul alone is the cause of its unhappiness, then that means that all there exists is soul. So there is not even a place for happiness or unhappiness to exist. So this is, in a sense, the concept of Kevala Advaita, where they say that soul alone exists. Okay, but then happiness and unhappiness can never, it will be irrelevant, because all there exists is just soul. Because if all there exists is soul, and that is what is causing its unhappiness, but this unhappiness can never be ascribed to a soul, because soul by nature is happy. And this argument is again rejected. So the first 3 causes, others are causing of my unhappiness, this argument is rejected. The gods are causing our unhappiness, that argument is rejected. The individual soul, which is self-inflicted, that argument is rejected. Cause 4. That the planets are causing my unhappiness. So we are born at a certain time, and at that time, all our activity, all our the incidents that are going to happen in this life are being destined. Therefore, the planets are causing my unhappiness. Okay. So the argument that is made here is that the planets affect this body. Okay, because whatever is at a certain time one is born. Okay, in the ascendant in the sky, there is a certain constellation, and based on the ascendant, the body is born. So the planets are affecting that which is born. Okay, that is the body. But the planets do not affect the soul, because the soul is eternal and it was never, and it is unborn. And therefore the planets do not affect. So in fact, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, in his analysis of this part, he takes this, he gives even example. People say that when sometimes if we have a malefic planet, like let's say Saturn or Rahu, which is in the 8th house of in somebody's chart, or to make it worse, if a planet is debilitated, then it is going to cause all kinds of tremendous problems in their life. But one needs to understand that all this is only to do with the body that is being born at that particular time, and not to do with the soul which is never born. And therefore, the astrological chart and the planets have no connection with the soul to determine the unhappiness. And therefore, the fact that the planets cause my unhappiness, that argument is rejected. Cause 5. My karma causes my unhappiness. I've done all kinds of sinful activities in my past, and therefore I'm facing all this unhappiness. But that argument here, the Bhagavatam says that the soul is eternal, okay? The soul being eternal, and the body is unconscious. So if the soul is eternal, it is not going to experience karma, okay? The soul it's always been there. Therefore, it is not going to experience karma, and the body is unconscious. So how is the body going to experience karma? The body is also not going to experience karma. Therefore, neither the soul, which is being eternal, and it is always happy, the soul is always happy, it can never experience unhappiness. And the body, which is unconscious, can also not experience karma. And therefore, when people say, oh, somebody is suffering, oh, it is because of your karma, that argument is again rejected. Cause 6. People say it's time. Time is the cause of suffering. Okay, so today you might be happy. After a few years, the time will change, and then you might be unhappy. And then again, you will be happy. That movement of time is the cause of my suffering. But the Bhagavatam says that the time and the soul, they both are manifested from the Lord's in spiritual potency. Okay, the soul is the marginal potency. The time also is manifested from the spiritual potency of the Lord. Okay, so an argument, so if two things are coming from the same spiritual potency of the Lord, one cannot be affecting the other. For example, if you have the coldness of the snow, okay, if you take that as the time, and then the analogy here is snowflake. Let's say that is the Jiva soul. Okay, the coldness of the snow is not going to go and destroy the snowflake. Okay, because both are coming from the same source, okay, which is the Lord's spiritual potency. And therefore, to say that the time is causing us our suffering, and that argument is again rejected. So what are the 6 arguments that are being rejected here? 1, that other living entities are causing our suffering. Argument is rejected. Okay, so we don't want to go and say, okay, you're all causing my suffering. Nobody's causing our suffering. Number 2, that all the devas, the natural calamities, a hurricane, the demigods, they are all causing our suffering. No, they are not causing our suffering. 3rd, it's self-inflicted. Okay, we are lamenting that, oh, I am causing my own suffering all the time. No, you're not causing your own suffering either. Number 4, that I have been born at a time which is, and all the planets, they are controlling this body, and therefore they are resulting in suffering. No, planets are controlling the body that is born, and there is no connection with the eternal soul. So the planets are not causing suffering. My own past karma is causing the suffering, and that argument is again rejected. Okay, because the body is first of all unconscious and is not even going to be affected by karma. And number 6, the moment and number 6, time is causing suffering, and time is also from a spiritual potency, and that argument is again rejected. So what is the cause of suffering? After rejecting these 6 causes, it is said that the false ego and its co-conspirator, which is the mind, is the cause of suffering. What is false ego? That we are not identifying with our true self, which is the soul, and we are identifying ourselves with us, with this kind of a body, with this kind of a color, with this kind of all the things that we have associated with. This false identification with the body creates the material bondage. then we get bonded to so many things. But here there gives an analysis. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he clearly states there that the actual culprit is the mind. And who's the co-conspirator? The co-conspirator is the false ego. They're all part of the subtle body. The false ego, which is predominated by the mind, part of the subtle body. So the subtle body is where the problem is. So that is the mind, which is predominating the co-conspirator, which is the false ego. In fact, one can ask, what about all the past six, like other living entities? But all the past six arguments, that is the other living entities causing us natural calamities, causing us planets, karma, all these things will have effect only if the cause 7 is true. If we do not identify ourselves with the body, that is this, and if the mind is not making us think, the mind is not causing the suffering, the first 6 causes cannot take effect. Other living entities cannot affect us if cause 7, which is the false ego predominant by mind, is not causing the suffering. So the root cause of suffering, which is identified here, is false ego. So at this stage, this is a reason why we actually need to seek protection. But when we actually seek protection of the Lord, we also need to know how to tolerate the distress. Matras prashastu kaunteya. So one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So Prabhupada says in one lecture, Tam Stitikshva Bharata. So you must have to tolerate, that is all. So it seems a sort of a statement which seems a little cold by saying you must have to tolerate it, there is no other remedy. But this tolerance is a very important attribute. And we will soon explain in the next slide why this tolerance is a very important attribute. So again, in another lecture, he says that we must tolerate and give this message to people. And we need to be very merciful as devotees of the Lord, in spite of all trouble. The Vaishnavas are always going to face trouble for all the things that they said, because it's not like the conditioned souls don't want to listen to this. And they're going to face all, but we have to be always very merciful. Karunika, very merciful. So a devotee should learn how to tolerate all awkward positions in this world. Devotees are often tortured by non-devotees, yet the pure devotee, depending fully on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is never disturbed by such inimical activities. Many inimical activities, we always need to learn how to tolerate it. Even there is distress in this material world, we should learn to tolerate. Why? Because it is ephemeral. That is the actual reason. This is based on Canto 5, 14, chapter 22 verse. Because all this distress that we are seeing, it is not real. It is actually affecting the body, and it is not real. It is temporary, and we are thinking that it is distress, but it is actually not distress. Our perception of what is happening is distress. But it is the mind which is making us think that that is distress. It is ephemeral, and it's actually the distress is not existing. Actually, the distress is not existing. And therefore, until we come to that stage where we understand that it is not distress, we need to learn how to tolerate it. So many things will happen in our life. We have family problems, we will have problems at work, problems outside, problems in society. All these things, until we get to the stage where we understand that we are the spirit soul, and until then, we need to practice this concept of tolerating. And that tolerating is not something that can be done artificially easily, because then it will just build up on us and one day it will burst. Therefore, how do we see so many problems keep coming to us, whether we ask for it or not? Therefore, we understand that all that is being given to us is the will of the Lord. So what are the steps in this? There's actually these 3 steps. I actually took it from this essay. This is not what the essay was meant for, but I basically took it from this. So I'm just wanting to acknowledge the source here. It's from the Back to Godhead magazine. It was an essay written on hope by Vishaka Devi Mataji. And so I basically paraphrased from that. And the first step here is acceptance that Krishna, in his form as time, will take away everything material away from us. Everything that is material, that Krishna will take away from us. Then materially, our situation is hopeless. So we don't want to hope for something material because the situation overall is already hopeless. And by the Lord's design, all this aging, death, they're all coming to each one of us. So the first step is to understand that there is a problem. Okay. But then the second step here is by God's grace, by Krishna's grace, we can gradually stop hoping for things destined to perish. That we hope for some kind of financial stability, all these kind of things that we are hoping for, which are destined to perish. We gradually stop hoping for that. And with knowledge, and then slowly we build on our knowledge of our true identity. And then what is the true identity? That we are the spirit soul. At that time, the material desires will appeal less and less. And slowly detachment will release us from bondage. So at this stage, we accept Krishna's mercy in whatever form it takes. What does it mean? Krishna is always protecting us, but the problem is that we want Krishna to protect the way in which what we think is called protection. So here again, it is very conditional. It's conditional. And therefore, that is why it's said here that in whatever form it takes. So we don't even understand how Krishna is protecting us, but to trust Krishna. And how do we do this? We strengthen our faith at this stage by association of sadhus, the pure devotees of the Lord. And then we use our free will to engage in Krishna's service. So in this way, we will be able to better accept the Lord's will. So many things are going to happen to us, so many things that are undesirable in this material world, because that is the design, because we are not meant here. And therefore, if we accept it as Krishna's will, and how do we do this? We need faith. And how do we strengthen the faith? In association with the devotees. Whether we ask for or not, we might think we are taking all the precautions in the world to do things correct. But independent of it, we ourselves might make a mistake. Other living entities are also might give us alter the situation, the status quo. And the natural calamities, devas, they will also alter the status quo. But in all these situations, if we accept that as the will of the Lord, it is a very important part of our process as we seek protection of the Lord. I'm going to give one example from the Srimad Bhagavatam now about everybody knows this pastime already, but it is always a pleasure to hear again about how Krishna protects. This example of protection of the king of elephants, Gajendra. Gajendra, he offered prayers to the Lord, but he did not mention the Lord's name. He offered prayer directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without mentioning any particular person. But none of the devas actually came for that protection because the elephant was asking for the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Brahma, Lord Shiva, none of them came. But Hari, being the super soul, he appeared before Gajendra. He was sitting on the Garuda bird. Lord Narayana appeared before him. And Gajendra was forcefully captured by this crocodile, and he was feeling very acute pain, and this was going on for a very long time. And then when he saw Lord Narayana wielding the disc, even in that painful condition, the elephant immediately, he took a lotus flower in his trunk and he uttered the words, "O my Lord Narayana, Master of the universe, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." The Lord immediately protected the elephant. So everybody is actually worshipping the Lord in different ways, whether they know it or not. The Lord's impersonal form is adored by those who are Brahmavadis, those who are in spiritual knowledge, who understand that we are the spirit soul, and then those who are worshipping the Paramatma as yogis, and those who are devotees who are worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. Badantita tat vidam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdete. So everybody's worshipping. So here, even though the elephant worshipped, so here is a protection of the Lord. And that at the end, Sukadeva Goswami is actually stating this protection given by Narayana to this elephant Gajendra. What is the verse that is said there? Krishna Anubhavo Gajaraja Moksham. It is Krishna who comes and saves this elephant, Gajaraja, the king of the elephants, Mokshanam, and gave him liberation. This is a wonderful power of Krishna. That is the verse that is Krishna Anubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam. That Krishna came to save this elephant. This is verse 8.4.14. That Krishna came to save this wonderful, and this is the wonderful power of Krishna he displayed when the Lord delivered the king of the elephants. So in so many places in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can see how Krishna directly helps the devotees. Krishna Anubhavu Gajaraja. This Gajendra was saved by Krishna. Krishna Anubhavu Gajaraja Mokshanam, and offered him liberation. This is one example. So when we are it will be a very nice thing to also read these prayers of Lord Gajendra, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, and see the mood in which the prayers are being offered. I will end this discussion with the last episode of protection. This is of Gopinatha Patanayaka. Gopinath, he was the brother of Ramananda Rai. There were 5 children of Bhavananda Rai as the Pandavas. The son of Bhavananda Rai, he was engaged in the Pandavas when they appeared. All the associates of the Lord also appear along when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as well. And all their identities are given by Kavi Karnapura. So here, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself states this. So they're all associated. He's the brother of Ramananda Rai, and then he was engaged in the service of the government. And there was a mistake done here that he misappropriated some funds from the treasury. But the prince, he was very angry, and this on top of this misappropriation, Gopinath Patanayaka also in a sense insulted the prince, and the prince accumulated false allegations against Gopinath Patanayaka, and then he presented that to the king, Prataparudra. Okay, Badajana, this is the prince, the eldest son of King Prataparudra. He then ordered that this Gopinath Patanayaka be punished by death. Okay, so he was going to be put, and all the blades were there by his neck, and he was supposed to be killed. And then at this time, what happened? All the members, different devotees, even including Swarupa Damodar, they all went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and told him many times that Gopinatha Patanayaka is he is very close to us. He's a son of Bhavananda Rai. And then, can you please put a word? And Mahaprabhu was not very happy with this whole situation. He said that Gopinatha Patanayaka has done a mistake. And so if you want, you go pray to Jagannath. Okay, because Jagannath is an all-merciful Lord. Why are you even coming to me? But then the devotees, they again went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and again asked him, can you please protect? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you keep coming like this, I'm just going to leave this place. I'm not this is all these mundane topics are just disturbing. I'm just going to go away to Alalanath. Okay, it was, and I'm not going to be here in Jagannath Puri because I'm facing constant disturbance. And afterward, Kashi Mishra, he was very close to the King Prataparudra. He also came and asked Mahaprabhu. And then Mahaprabhu said, this is 4 times people have come here saying this is what has happened to Gopinath Patanayaka. I'm here, there's all these mundane things are quite disturbing. And then, but then the news somehow reached King Prataparudra that Gopinath Patanayaka was an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Immediately, as soon as he heard this, King Prataparudra released him. And then by the Lord's mercy, he was even awarded a higher post and then given back. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was not very happy that his name was used though. But the message here is just informing the Lord of one's suffering is sufficient for the protection. They went and informed him, but the point is not just informing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually made one inquiry there. And what is the inquiry? That what was he doing when he was placed on the deathbed? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given this answer that he was saying, Hare Krishna Kahe Avishrama. Even though he was not in the best position, he was constantly chanting with his fingers. He didn't have the beads. He was chanting with his fingers, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is what pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we are in that horrible situation, at that time he was chanting, Hare Krishna Kahe Avishrama. He was chanting Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antalila, chapter 9, verse 56. And that's what pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have to understand one thing, that we don't have any right for anything in this world. The only right that we have in this world is to pray to Krishna. And that right will never ever be taken away. And that is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, says that the only right the living entity has is the right to pray, even in the deathbed, the very last moment when one is going to be killed. Even at that time, that right will stay. And we can use our free will to execute that right to pray to Krishna. So whether or not, so this is the verse that is said by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami at the end of this chapter, whether or not one understands it, even if this incident of Gopinath Patnayaka, even if one just hears it, one can understand that person will be promoted to the ecstatic love for the Lord, and all dangers will be nullified. We are surrounded. So these 2 incidents, one is the story of the protection, the pastime of the protection of the Gajendra in the Bhagavatam, and then this pastime in that even there might have been some mistake done by Gopinath Patnayaka, but then so many other allegations were put on top of it. But at the time of death, he was constantly chanting the Hare Krishna, completely dependent on the protection of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord will protect. At the moment when we need protection, the Lord will be there to protect. Of that, the Lord says there does not need to be any doubt. And that is, the Lord even says in the Bhagavatam that is the right of the devotee. The devotee has the right to receive that protection. And the Vishnu Dutas this verse here is a very nice verse which says that the Lord or the Vishnu Dutas, they are non-different in that sense. They are able to offer that protection. So here, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, when he is commenting about this particular verse that we are discussing today, he is saying that even the great devas, okay, Brahma, Lord Shiva, they are also worshipping the Vishnu Dutas. So what to speak about the associates of the servants of Lord Yama, that the devotees of the Lord are even protected from Lord Yama. And therefore, it would not be very wise to not be very humble towards the Yamadutas. The devotees of the Lord are very powerful, and they are able to offer the protection. Narada Muni has given that protection in so many instances. And a pure devotee, if we are under the protection, under the shelter of a pure devotee, then we can consider our lives as bhagya, as fortunate. If we are not under the protection of a pure devotee, then that situation is called abhagya, as an unfortunate position. And therefore, we need to actively seek to be under the shelter of a pure devotee. And that pure devotee, like the Yamadutas here, will protect us. With that, I will stop this discussion. I hope I have not said anything incorrect. And if I've said something incorrect, please correct me here. And also, please share any other realizations that I've missed. It's possible that I've missed some points here. Again, thank you so much, Mataji, for inviting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. What a wonderful class, Prabhuji. From starting to end, it's really very nice, Prabhuji. It's a deep analysis of all the verses which you have took, and also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's analysis of the cause of suffering. And before that, you also took some analysis from Bhagavatam. So it was really wonderful, Prabhuji. So it gives a clear understanding, according to me. So for me, it gives a really clear understanding through your PPT. Every time your class is the same way. Like it gives a clear understanding of the topic which we are going through. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that. And devotees, now the forum is open for question and answers. Please raise your hands and go ahead with your questions. Unmute yourselves and you can go ahead with your questions. Sukukara Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lalita Mataji. Jayananda Prabhu, as usual, is a spellbound class. You covered everything and all very deep-rooted. All your points, will it be in any format where we can get it in the Japa Sangha so that because everything we are not going to note.
I will send a PowerPoint to Vinita Gandharvi Mataji and she can send it.
It will be very, very wonderful because our purpose is to give there. So we are giving, we'll pass on to others. So everybody let them get this knowledge because then Krishna will be happy. So I just want to know one thing you were telling about this protection. Now, Gajendra also went for protection. Draupadi also, she asked for protection in the end. So that is the same type of, that was different consciousness. So Gajendra did not call any name. He just said, God will protect me, and then Krishna understood. But in
the different pastimes, they all have some kind of a mellow, some kind of which the devotees cherish. And here in the Gajendra's pastime, Gajendra could have called by name Krishna, and but throughout the chapter he referred to the Lord as the Supreme Lord, and referred to him in different ways. Actually, he spoke about the impersonal aspect, he spoke about the personal aspect, about the super soul, everything. But that is and when the Gajendra referred to the Lord as as a supreme personality of Godhead, and here Narayana came on top of the Garuda bird, that is the wonderful aspect of that pastime. When he's referring to the Supreme Lord, and here comes Krishna, and that is so every pastime has its own flavor in the thing, and that is. And you can see that in everywhere, whether even in the Mahabharata or in different pastimes in the Bhagavatam, they all have their own distinct flavor, and that's what the devotees relish. So if every pastime is alike. So there is this variety. The variety is there in the spiritual life, the variegatedness, and that variegatedness is the best part here in the Vaikuntha. So that's a brief answer, Prabhu. But if you have any other thoughts,
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much, and Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Priti Dansini Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Priti Mata.
Thank you so much. I'm always mind-blowing, very, very nice presentation, and that is such an important topic for discussion. I like the way you split it into 3 different sections and you dealt with it. And thanks for the relevant stories at the end to tell us what exactly what exactly we must do looking at these examples. So Prabhu, I'll try to put my question in the best possible way. I hope I'm able to express what I'm intending to express. So when we saw the reasons for suffering, as analyzed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we had a list of possible causes for our suffering, and we had rejected all of them, and finally we came to the possible cause for suffering, and we accepted one point. So when we were analyzing that, we mostly saw that, when we think that the body is the cause for suffering, it is rejected because we are not the body and we are soul. So all our identification is around the body, right? That was the first few cases, all the cases for that matter, except for the last one. But however, when we look at the actual protection of the Lord, when you show these stories from Bhagavatam and other places, it appears that protection means protection of the body. So my question is, what is really protection by the Lord? Why? Because in the case of Gajendra or in the case of Gopinath Patnaik's situation, or any matter, anything for that matter, most of the stories are all around the protection of the body. Now, what is really protection of the body?
Very nice thing, Mataji, actually. Because all these different examples and statements, they have some sort of connection with our body from the way we are looking at it, from the conditioned soul. So it might look like that. But Krishna is actually protecting our bhakti. That is the protection Krishna is offering. Krishna is protecting our devotional service. So, and for that, to protect that bhakti, externally, it might look like he's protecting the body. The body has the material body has not, is born, it's not the eternal. It's, in all these cases, if you see, it is the bhakti that he's protecting. And in order to protect the devotional service, so many other things are also being protected, like the body is protected, the subtle body, our intelligence is protected. All these things are being protected. But so that is why sometimes we don't even understand how Krishna is protecting us. So it might look to us, we are in a very difficult situation, let's say, in the material world. And then we might be constantly blaming the Lord. Why is the Lord not? I am chanting every day. I am doing all the service. I'm doing all these things. But why is Krishna not protecting? That is because we are not able to see the protection. Maybe we are able to see only the protection of the body, but Krishna is actually protecting our bhakti.
Thank you, Prabhu. Such a beautiful analysis and answer, and very promising. I mean, devotion is so deep, right? So thank you for such a nice analysis. Every time you come up with these different topics and analysis, I don't know, I can just say one thing. We are extremely fortunate to have your association on this call. So thank you so much for all the brilliant questions you did.
Thank you so much, Preeti Mataji, for that excellent question. Next is Prahladanand Prabhuji. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mataji. And then pranam to all Vaishnavas and Jayananda Prabhu. Thank you very much. The point came to my mind was about we are suffering this material world and what's the cause. In Vidur Maitreya dialogue, Vidur is asking Maitreyaji, Sukhai karmani karoti loke. We are all trying to become happy in this world, but we cannot. So what is the cause? And then he answered it as Asis sankle samam vidatte gunanuva sravanam mudane. And he said that, for those who are attached, he uses the word Atma Labdha. Those who are attached to service of Lord Sri Krishna, they don't feel any kind of distress here in this material world. So as you analyze that, and again in the Rusabdev Maharaj says, Pritir Nayavan Mayi Vasudeve Na Muchyate De Yogen Tavan. So because we are all colored with all these modes of material nature, and the root cause, as you say, is false ego, and and the mind, both combined, and they are the ones making us a fool out of us, making us that I'm this body and I'm not, and all the sufferings are subsequent to this kind of conclusion. So the root of all this is, as you said, is to take shelter of great devotee like Srila Prabhupada, or any great pure devotee, and then that will solve our problem for good. So this was my little realization, Prabhuji. I submit at your feet, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Gail Mataji, please go ahead.
Oh, Hare Krishna, sorry. Yeah, a couple things, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this class. I have two things. One is when we say that the false ego, I think I'm not sure how you put it, that the mind somehow takes over the false ego, and then we identify with the body in that way. How did you make that connection between the mind and false ego and our identification with the body?
That's Mataji, I think the easiest thing would be to actually go to that verse. This is 11th canto, chapter 23. I think it's verses 43 to 50 or 50 through 55, something like that. So the last of those verses, if my memory is correct, it is somewhere there between 43 to 55, somewhere there are 7 verses. And if you go to
you said 11th canto, which
11th canto, chapter 23.
Yeah.
And then this set of every verse is one of the causes. So I think it is 43 through 50 or 50 through 55. I don't remember exactly where it is, but if you can look at it, there it will, if you go to the 7th one, there you can look at the purport, and it will tell you clearly, will describe to you the subtle body, which is here the false ego is identified in the verse, but all the subsequent verses will tell you that it is the mind which is the predominating the false ego. And as soon as this takes effect, all the other 6. So I think if you can just look at that, it'll be even more clearer than probably what I just spoke.
Okay, but the reason why I brought it up is because, don't we always hear that it is due to the false ego that we identify with the mind? I mean, with the body? Don't we always hear that? That it's the false ego that's causing that?
That is correct, Mataji. The false ego is, that is why the false ego is what is mentioned in this verse. The verse doesn't say directly predominated by mind. But if you look at all the subsequent verses, the conclusion is that the mind is the cause. So it actually has to be, it's not, I wouldn't do justice here in just 2 minutes because it is a very deep subject here. But if you look at that verse, if you just not look at that verse alone, but if you look at all the subsequent verses together, it will be clear about the connection between the false ego and the mind there.
Okay, so I should look at verses 43 to 50?
Give you a verse. Just give me 1 second. I'll give you the exact verse. Give me 1 second. Just open Bhagavatam 1 second. The verse number is Canto 11, Chapter 23, the Song of the Avanti Brahmana, and there it is, verse number. Okay, so verse number 50 is where it starts. 50 is other people causing causing us distress. 51 is demigods causing distress. 52 is self-inflicted distress. 53 is planets causing distress. 54 is karma causing distress. 55 is time causing distress. 56, that is the verse.
56.
56.
Okay.
And then if you read the purport and then the subsequent few verses, then you'll get it. 50 through 56.
Okay.
Yeah. Lastly, Mataji, sharing the screen, you can see that, Mataji.
Okay, yeah, I can't look at this right at the moment, but I will look at it after the class. And then just one other question was, this is kind of a little tangential maybe to class, or maybe not, because you did mention it, I think, about the sitting place of lust. You know, I mean, as we all know, this lust has its sitting places in the mind and in the intelligence, right? And I believe in the senses also. So can you explain to me the difference between how lust manifests in the senses versus how lust manifests in the mind?
So this Mataji is actually explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you said here, the sitting place is actually there in chapter 3, verse number 40. So if you see that verse, the answer to yours, the exact words, what you said was there in that purport. In that, so I'll read that thing. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of the lust, which wields the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So the answer to all what you said is there in that purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. And therefore, Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities of the senses. Yeah, this is the verse. Yeah, 3.40. If you see the purport, this will give you the exact answer to that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be adding anything more to than what Prabhupada is saying here. But
yeah, I did remember that this is there in verse in the Gita, but
yeah, that's this purport is the answer to that. So
I heard explanation that before that was a little clearer than that purport for me, so I was hoping to get a little more insight, but it's okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. If anybody else needs to add to that, because it was just the literal translation, whatever Mataji mentioned of the 3.40, so I immediately said that verse. So if anybody wants to add to that, the purport of the 3.40 is what is telling about that. So the mind is the center of all activities and senses. Then you have intelligence department, which is the capital of such lustful propensities. And then the spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying this material sense. So it talks about all these three, but it's just the detail that purport. So if anybody wants to add,
you see, the reason why I bring up the question is because, you know, the fact that the mind is like the center of the senses, there's like it seems to be like an overlap there for me between the senses and the mind. That's why I was trying to tease apart the way the lust manifests in the senses from how lust manifests in the mind as separate from the senses, you know?
So does somebody want to add to what because what I'm just saying is just repeating this verse, the purport of this verse, Mataji mentioned. Does somebody just wants to add to this in that way? I can also hear.
Okay, I think I'm out of luck. That's okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Vinita Gandarika Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful class as always. A very nice class, Prabhuji, that it's only our mind which is causing us the problem, not anything else. And Lord is there to protect us. If it's a real problem, He will definitely protect us. We are asking unnecessary problems like a problem, help me, help me, help me. That is not the real problem. And on top of it, we are saying, oh, I'm doing everything and still you are not protecting me. I mean, if it is really needed, he will definitely be there, as you said, for Gopinath Patnaik, how he is there to protect at the last moment. That's the real protection that we needed, that he needs to protect our bhakti and he needs to take us back. So that's a very wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And this class is meant for me, I guess. Hare Krishna. Very grateful to you, Mother, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, Mataji. Rukmani Mataji, please go ahead. Rukmani Mataji.
Oh, Mataji is not connected to audio, but then she is raising her hand. I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't see also.
Yeah. Maybe it's my mistake. I don't know.
Okay, so I think there are some questions in the chat, Prabhuji. Jyoti Mataji is asking, we have to pray to Lord for needful protection. Is my understanding in material world and then protection of bhakti, right? That is the first question, and she's having one more question also.
So we need 100%, we need to be protected by the Lord. Whether the body, we are seeing the material body, but actually there is a spiritual body which is in the service, which needs to be in the service of the Lord. And the Lord protects everything. He protects the subtle body, the gross body, our soul, everything he protects. Therefore, but actually when we see deeply, there is actually no problem. The material body is, it's the real problem is that we have falsely identified ourselves with this body and not the soul. And because of that, all the conditioned soul is seeing all kinds of problems. When we have, what is the question? When we surrendered 100% to the Lord, or do good to us.
That is the second question, yeah. When we surrender 100%, then Lord will protect or will do good to us, then why we need to ask for protection? What he does is best, like brahmachari lives. Do brahmachari need to ask, or we should ask Lord for spiritual help, because problems do come. Some are solvable, some are not. Then how to go about it?
So this is a good thing. Actually, it's a nice question, Mataji, because problems, the one thing I will state here is problems are solvable. Actually, the problems are not solvable. The problems are not solvable. It might just, because there was, in the first sense, there is no problem to begin with. We are seeing a problem. We are seeing that there is a problem, but that is from our conditioned state. From our conditioned state, it is all appearing as a problem. But the problem actually doesn't even exist in the first place. But we need to seek the Lord's protection in all circumstances. We are here, okay? We are here, and the liberated souls are always seeking 100% protection, and they're always getting 100% protection. But we, the conditioned souls, we always need to seek protection. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving an example of that. Krishna, 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 Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Rakshama. That means he's setting an example that we need protection. And that also talks to us about the humble state of a devotee. When we are in that, the Vaishnavas are always in that kind of a mode. We are always in a humble mode, always seeking protection of the Lord, always under the shelter of the Lord. And that is the overall beauty of the whole aspect, whole program, is that we are always humble and seeking the protection of the Lord. Maybe for outsiders, like, what are they seeking even protection for? People might just think people might, other people might say, why are these devotees even asking for protection? If there is no problem to even begin with, what protection? But the devotee always is in that mood of seeking protection from the Lord. It is a very wonderful interaction also between the devotee and the Lord, And it always shows the submissive nature of the devotee with reference to the Lord. And actually speaking to, the devotee needs protection. The devotee does need protection, whether it is even our body, we need to protect it in order to serve in this. For us to make the progress, we need to also have some protection of the body too. And Krishna will protect. Krishna is even though he's protecting everybody, everything is going on in this world that's under his protection. It is part of our devotional progress that we seek this protection and not just passively wait. And the second thing is, it's the Bhagavatam itself is full of stories of how various devotees have been protected. It might not seem to us that they are like, if you see King Parikshit himself, at the end, he was just bit by the snake bird. So what will somebody who reads that say, at the end, after all, he did not, but that is not the way the devotees see it, is very different from the way the others will see it. It's just like how we go to Vrindavan. And if we are in the association of devotees, and if we open our spiritual eyes and we are able to see the Braja, then we will be able to see it. But if we go on our own, we put our material eyes, Vrindavan is, Braja Mandala is not visible to us. In the same way, for us to be able to see the protection of the Lord itself, we need the association of the devotees and be able to take this material eyes out and be able to see the protection of the Lord. I partially answered, I think, in the interest of time. But...
Very nice, Prabhuji, very nice. Basically, the protection should be given by Lord. The devotees seek the protection just to progress in spiritually. So, and also with the association of devotees, we can progress, get the spiritual eyes and see the Lord.
Yes. And we are also very demanding in the sense that we want protection in one particular way. We think that that is protection and we want the Lord to protect. I'm not talking about everybody. I'm at least talking about myself here. So at least I think that... Yes, Mataji?
Yeah, that's what I was also about to say, Prabhuji. I like the point which you told. The Lord protects in the way which we want, then we say it's protection.
Then it is protection.
Otherwise, it's not protection.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Everything has to be tailored to us, all given in a platter. And then the Lord is protect. Okay, then we will chant. It's great.
Yeah. So, divine time, Prabhuji, one last question is there in the chat. It's from Hemi Gupta Mataji. She is asking, how do we apply tolerance principle at workplace, especially if you see gross injustice? Accepting it and not speaking up will affect oneself and in turn others who are depending on you at work. How to approach this in Krishna conscious way?
So Mataji, these kind of questions are very appropriate for a spiritual mentor because it is a very personalized question. And answers in spiritual life are usually tailored to a particular devotee. And what I may say like in a generic way may not even apply directly to a particular devotee. So, but I will just give one or two glimpses here, but the best would be to approach their own spiritual master or spiritual mentor who will provide a more tailored answer to a particular, because overt giving some broad statements like this might even provide harm to that person by if I just say something and if it doesn't even work properly in your realm. But there are two aspects here. One way to explain this maybe to strike some balance until we are spiritually elevated. In a conditioned state, it might look to us that there is gross injustice, but there is no injustice. There is no injustice. Everybody is getting what they deserve. There is no injustice. We might think that there is problem, but there is no problem. We might think that people are depending on us, but nobody is depending on us. They're all actually dependent on Krishna, whether they recognize it or not. Nobody is actually dependent on us. Even our children are not dependent on us. That is the verse in the Bhagavatam. The parents might think, okay, the kids are there. We have to somehow protect this body and soul together. And then somehow we take care of our kids. But actually the kids are not dependent on us. The kids are all dependent on Krishna. Vilvamangala Thakur, he just left the kid like that and he just went on just that some lizard was making some sound and he just left and he went to Vrindavan and wrote Krishna Karnamrita. So in this way, the kids are not really dependent. For external people, it might look that, oh, Vilvamangala Thakur is so irresponsible. He just left the kid like that and just went like that to Vrindavan. But the way the devotees see it is all very different from how we will see it. So tolerance is, when I actually Googled this word tolerance and then just saw what all the things, but tolerance in fact is even seen as something very negative in the material world, when it is seen as something, the most important thing in spiritual life. So, and in this age of Kali, that's how it will be. As we move forward, oh, let's not tolerate anything. Let's not tolerate anything. Slightest problem, let's quarrel, let's make a fight, let's just break up everything. But that is the nature of this age as described in the Canto 12 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 12, this starts like that this age, even slight problem, only even husband, wife, they cannot get along with each other. And then small problem is enough to incite things, everything will go wrong. But if, let's say, I'll give you an example, Mataji. Let's say that one person, let's say your colleague, is being promoted to a higher position and you are kept in the same way, okay, hypothetical situation. And you don't feel that colleague is even qualified for that promotion. And you feel that even if you are not qualified, that person should not be promoted. Let's say that you feel like that, okay? Whether it is your right or not, in your own material reasoning, it is not of much, when we think a little deeply, first thing is that particular position, even materially speaking, may not be a very good thing for you. Whether it is good for the other person or not, also you don't know. And this is just from a material reasoning. From a spiritual reasoning, we can give a slight bit of benefit of doubt to Krishna, why he has not chosen us for that position, why it is not good for us. And therefore, accepting what Krishna has given us, instead of fighting every situation and trying to solve that problem. If we stop fighting against this material world and accept it, our life will become more peaceful. This tolerance is about this natural, the tolerance is actually a side effect of progress of devotional service. It will come automatically. Let's say all this injustice that one talks about at workplace, there is no injustice. There is no injustice. It's just that we are perceiving injustice. We are perceiving the injustice from our conditioned state. But if when we move away from that and look at it with a spiritual lens and see, we will just find the whole situation so beautiful. That we are being treated very well. We will find it. We will find that we are being treated very well. In fact, much better than how we should have been treated based on all our karma. And Krishna has provided a situation even much better than what we actually deserve. And therefore, this tolerance, it will come, we can start practicing it in small stages, small things, and very easy way. How to do it is to accept it as a mercy of Krishna. Then we will be happy. Then there is, we won't compare with others. We won't do, and then taking this burden of that we have to protect all our employees below, who are reporting to us or whatever, it's an illusion. In fact, it is making us a false controller of somebody whom we are actually not. This is just perpetuating the original cause of fall down. It's the same thing we are doing. We're saying, oh, we have to protect all these employees. I mean, we have nobody. There is nothing that we have to do our job, what Krishna has given us. But at the same time, this unusual burdening of ourselves that we are the protector will only further exacerbate that illusion. Somebody wants to add something, and again, I'm saying this is a very broad statement, and it may not even help you, whatever I said. the best thing would be to talk to one's own spiritual mentor who will give a more pertinent answer which is suitable to you and what you actually want to hear and what you can implement. What I'm saying broadly might, whether it helps or not, I just don't want it to do any harm. So I apologize. I just broadly spoke about based on the scriptures, but I apologize if it is not very pertinent to your question in the first place. So thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. In fact, that was really a very wonderful reply, actually, so the tolerance which you were saying. And I think Gaurangi Mataji, you have a question?
Actually, thank you, Mataji. It's just one comment, and you might have even mentioned this already, Prabhu, but I'm not sure. I was just thinking, we were talking about how protection manifests for the devotees. I was thinking that it manifests differently for different devotees depending upon their level of spiritual advancement, you know. So, for example, for one devotee, protection might be in the form of protecting the body. Another devotee might be in the form of making him take another birth, you know, and serving in that next body. Or, you know, I don't know, so many varieties of protection are there depending on what Krishna, I think, feels that devotee needs. I don't know how you feel about that statement.
So if I understand what you're saying, Mataji, is saying that different people are protected differently based on their needs and what they require. Is that correct? And
are treated differently. I mean, always for the sake of, for their spiritual advancement, of course, but what one person needs for their spiritual advancement might be different from what another person needs for their spiritual advancement. So for one person, you know, that protection might take the form of protecting their present body, right? But for another person, maybe Krishna feels that they would make better spiritual advancement if they took birth in another body, you know, hypothetically, you know, like this.
So, Mataji, one thing I'll just add here, I understand all what you're saying, but I'll just add a corollary thought to this. That the corollary thought to this is the overall perception that conditioned souls might have, that as though Krishna is our order carrier, that he's meant to give us protection, and we make these requests, and then he fulfills it based on different, based on our qualification, based on that, this, and all he fulfills in so many things. So this is the overall concept of this, it's more like a trading system, like some kind of a demand. You know, we have, so we are doing all this devotional service. His job is to protect us, protect our bhakti. His job is to protect our body. So this whole concept of this, there is the concept of love is lost in this situation, in this kind of a thought. I'm not saying this is what you're saying, Mataji, but I'm just giving a corollary thought to what you're saying. And but this kind of protection that we are seeking from the Lord is actually a loving exchange between the devotee and the Lord. The devotee is so happy because he's seeking the protection of the Lord, always under the shelter of the Lord, and the Lord is happy in that interaction. And other devotees are happy to read those pastimes of how the Lord has protected different devotees. So this whole thing is a very loving exchange. But then the conditioned souls, we are so much used to doing everything as a trade. I do this, then you do this. I do. So in the same way, we also need to be a little careful in this whole realm, that we are not doing all this devotional service, and it's Krishna's job is to fulfill us and satisfy us by protecting us. That is not how this whole thing works. So then it just becomes like as though, and Krishna is not our order carrier, that we say, okay, come on, please, now I am in this trouble. Come on, now it's your job. I've been chanting all this time. Now your job is to protect us. So when we let go this, that state and seek this whole thing of seeking protection as our, as a thing, because that is our true state. Our true state is that we are so in that kind of a position, and when we realize our true state, that seeking protection will automatically come, and that is a very happy state. That child is in a helpless situation, constantly seeking the that help of that mother. Okay, this is, I'm just taking from literally from that Prabhupada's explanation of the Mahamantra. And in the same way, we also need to understand that it is not our right to seek protection. We don't have that right. We can seek. It is up to Krishna how he protects us. We can seek, and we can, and in what extent he does for different devotees. All this analysis is makes the whole situation looks like it's some kind of a trade system, that we do all this devotional service and then the Lord has to protect according to it. It's beyond these kind of rules. It functions beyond these rules, and because it is in the platform of love. So that's just a corollary thought, Mataji. I hope I didn't I hope I didn't say anything which was it is not directly related exactly to what you said, but it's just a corollary thought I got. I think you shared your realizations very well. So
yeah. Just to reiterate, though, I did want to, I was asked, making that comment in the mood of devotees who are interested in developing a loving relationship, not a transactional.
Transactional, very nice, Mataji. That is the word I wanted to use. It didn't come to my mind. Yeah, very nice.
Not that mood. Perfect. Not that mood. No,
that's the correct word, Mataji.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I don't see any more raised hands or any questions in the chat. And yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was really a very wonderful class. P.T. Lasmi Mataji is saying, I really loved what you said. The concept of love is lost in the bargain for protection. Yeah, so it's just like a trading system which you told. So we should not consider the Lord as our order carrier. So usually what we do is, I'm giving this much amount for this work. So you just make me to do this. So this is what generally the conditioned souls we are doing like that. So that has to be changed. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful class. And we want your association in future also. Devotees, let's pay our obeisances to Prabhuji. Vancha Kancharti Krishna, Kritha Sandhupi Vicha Patrisha, keep us in the way of Chapati Panaha, Ananta Koti Vaishnava, Prabhupada, Jayananda Gauranga Prabhu Ji, Jai. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pranam Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Gauranga.
Gauranga.
Pranam to all.
Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, dear devotees.
Meet again tomorrow. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.